Hey, I'm Lou Brutus. My next guest I normally speak to in regard to his other band, which for my money might be the greatest rock and roll band in the history of Western civilization. However, he has another incredible band called Projected, and he's my old friend from Sevendust, John Connolly. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be seen. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know what? Talk about Projected and the history of the band and how you guys came together and started to become, I think, more of a group, because this time around there seems to be more of a, I don't even know, like a firmer sound to you guys.
Sure, yeah. We first started the thing, it was sort of just like, it was like a club. Sort of like, we don't have any expectations on this. If we get a deal, we get a deal. If we get a radio, we get some radio. If, it was sort of just like, all right, in our downtime, let's just make some music and just see what happens. Just purely hypothetical, mostly alcohol induced, hanging out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, we're going to do this and that and the other thing. And, a month to go by and nothing comes up of it. And then finally, one day we just woke up and we said, hey, that thing we've always talked about doing, let's do it. And I sent over some demos to Flip, and he was like, man, this is actually pretty cool. Let's organize this and pull it off. And it was sort of, it always started out with, the idea of just making music, not really overthinking it too much. Flip had asked me, am I overplaying on the drums? I'm like, well, that means it's perfect. Like all the stuff that we would normally remove out of all of our other bands or whatever, it's like, leave it in, just work off instinct, just gut reaction, just have fun with it, and we did. And then of course, the musician sort of kicks in, and then you start organizing it, and then, you have a presentation, and then the first record happens, and you're like, oh, wow, wait a minute, hang on a second. This actually sounds pretty cool. I think Elvis, did us a huge solid by mixing that first record, because it could have gone one or two ways. It could have been, we do this record, it's got some cool songs on it, sounds a little funky, and that's it. That's what John sounds like when he's singing. But we handed him all the funky, and he made it sound amazing. So, when people heard it, they were like, man, tell us about the recording process. And that's when, we kind of explained to people we did it super wrong, like completely not the way most musicians work, at least then. Like nowadays, everyone's working that way. Everyone's working off hard drives, doing stuff on Zoom calls, doing stuff remotely, which is sort of how we had to work back then, just because we were trying to save a buck. It was like, instead of booking the studio, if we could do it in my little home studio, that's what we were going to do. I'm already paying for it. I'm paying the mortgage. So it's like, it's money being spent either way. So, those records were made with that whole idea of just get it when you can. When's Flip at home? Okay, I got 5 days where I can grab his drums. I could grab his drums. You do that part, and then you do this part, and then you do this part. And then 6 months later, you have all the parts to put a record together. And, Projected would release a record, and everyone's like, why did it take you 5 years to make the next record? I was like, well, because it was a double record, and I had to go through that same process all over again. Chase around so-and-so, get this on so-and-so, get this on so-and-so. This time we just changed all that up. And we said, why don't we just do like normal bands do, and actually go in the studio with a producer and make a record? So that's what we did. And the crazy thing is, you can hear it. It sounds like, it just sounds more connected. It sounds more cohesive. It sounds like, we all were sort of jumping on that one common thought and thread. Of course, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some fast stuff, some heavy stuff, some slower stuff. But I think overall, I think the whole thing has a vibe about it. It has a sound. And just doing it with everybody there, having the seal of approval. Even if people are just riding shotgun in the back of the room, just having your guys looking over your shoulder while you're putting parts down, while you're working stuff through there with the producer, is kind of like, you never have to wonder, are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? You just turn around and be like, well, you haven't said anything. Do you hate it? No, we love it, But yeah, it was a totally different experience this time, and it was sort of cool to just go, all right, if this was actually going to be a band, this is sort of how a band would approach making a record, wouldn't they? but no, I mean, the whole experience working with Elvis and, you know, doing it in the studio was, it was just the next logical step for us, because we had proven that we could do something completely wrong and pull it together and release something that people would be into. I just think having Elvis on board and actually having everybody in the same place at the same time, it just really, really dialed in the sound, and it focused it a lot more. There's no other way to explain it other than when I listen to it, it just sounds like a very focused band. So,
John, I think the word that you really hit on in that answer was cohesive. And that's the difference I noticed between the records. I mean, it really is telling. Was it fun this time around then to be all back together again? And was it difficult to do, given that everybody, you know, has pretty busy schedules?
I mean, this time, if there's any time that we could have, you know, planned for a pandemic, this was the time to do it, you know, because it was like, okay, you know, I can't tour. I mean, we had just bagged a whole bunch of Sevendust dates, and I was already working on Projected. Like, it was already sort of, you know, on the front burner. Like, it had been stuff that I'd been tracking vocals on, you know, and I started kind of doing the math, and I was like, all right, you know, I've got 7 or 8 things that I have completed. I need to land the plane on another 2 or 3 others. And then, you know, I need to fill in what I need to fill in. And I remember hitting up Tim going, you know, I might be ready to hop in, you know, August-ish, July or August, something like that. And he hit me back and he was like, well, Elvis would love to have you, but he needs you in June. 3 weeks to pull this record together. He goes, can you do it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that I know what I got to do. So we put the date on, we booked the plane tickets, we got E-Rock in, Vinny drove down, and that was it. You know, so the beginning of the pandemic for us was business as usual in the studio. We just didn't go and hang out with people, you know, on our lunch break. We would just hang out at the studio. So for us, it was almost the exact same experience. It was when we got out of the studio. That's what was weird, because you're up close and personal with the whole world in the middle of the pandemic, you know. And this is when we were breaking numbers. You know, Florida was like, you know, looking at it like it was a Guinness Book of World Records. How many can we post in a day? You know, let's see, 1,000. I'm like, this is not a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't actually want that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
you know, and for folks who are unfamiliar, could you run down everybody in the band and some of their backgrounds? Because it really is an amazing collection of musicians.
Yeah. Well, we got Vinny, Vince Hornsby, who I've been with in Sevendust for, you know, a couple millennia at this point.
Riding mastodons on your first tour through the Ice Age hills of North America.
Yeah, Scott Phillips from Creed and Alter Bridge. And then you have Eric Friedman, E-Rock, who was also in Creed on their last record, and he plays in Tremonti. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, it was sort of an obvious thing when, you know, we started it. You know, Flip was like, all right, we can do this, you know, we can book some studio time. And then Vinny was like, well, if you're going to be doing anything, you know, I mean, I'm available. So I was like, all right, well, that takes care of the bass player. I was like, all right, so Flip. And we were over at Mark's house, you know, drinking, I'm sure, playing demos. And E-Rock comes in, he was like, man, I want to get involved in this. And I was like, well, come on. He goes, no, I will come over. And I was like, I'm serious. He goes, I'm serious too. And I was like, all right, man, like, for real, I'm going to send you these demos if you want to come and play on this stuff. I'm not kidding. And, you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, he was on a plane on his way in there. We tracked him. We got all those vocals and the whole. So it was a completely, it wasn't like we sat down with a sheet of paper and went, all right, you know, this guy, you know, he's got the looks. Well, he can sing, but this guy lives here and he's in this band. Like, none of that happened. It was just sort of like, okay, cool. You want to make music? All right, cool. You want to make music? All right. You know, I probably would have said okay to everybody, but we just ran out of spots. We didn't want any, you know, 4-piece felt good, you know, like, all right.
Well, and here's the other thing, you know, obviously everybody in Projected is a world-class musician, but sometimes the best musicians do not always make the best bandmates, nor do they always gel well together. Why is it you guys get along like it's old home week?
I think we sort of all grew up and we came from the same place. We sort of, like, even though Creed and Sevendust weren't from the same mold, we did a lot of touring together. We did a lot of hanging together. And you know, it's one thing to sit down and to write a song together with a group of people, but when you're in the back of a tour bus and, you know, you're 4 months into a tour and, you know, somebody fires up that song and you get all motivated and you're into it and stuff like that. I mean, those are the hangs that you really can find out. All right, what are these dudes into? Like, where's the latitude of what I can do to excite both Flip and Vinny? Like, I knew Vinny sort of, but it was sort of like Flip was this new thing, you know, but then you tour with Creed and you become friends, and then, you know, the families start hanging out, and you start to really understand where these people are coming from. And then some of it had nothing to do with music at all. It was just like, these are just really easy people to hang out with. You know, I mean, that was almost the bigger attraction than anything. It was like completely drama free, like nothing, like nobody brings any of that, and none of it comes around. You know, everyone just shows up with a smile on their face. You know, when it's time to make music, we make music. When we have a drink, we have a drink. You know, it's just super, super, super easy. But I think a lot of it, you just sort of get lucky. And I think when it really comes down to it, the musician side is one thing, the songwriting side is another thing. But, you know, me being an ex-drummer, the rhythm is very, very important to me. And Morgan is a phenomenal drummer. You know, Morgan comes from a place, you know, he attacks a set of drums. He does something to a set of drums that not very, very few people do.
By the way, I've always said Morgan hits the drums like they owe him money.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But the interesting thing is, after playing with Scott Phillips, I realized there's something else, that he has something that's very unique as well. And it's weird because when Vinny and Morgan play together, it sounds like this. When Flip and Vinny play together, it sounds like this. And it's the weirdest thing in the world, because I'm like, it's the same bass player, but he plays differently depending on the drummer that he's playing with. And that's it. You know, it's like, it's those simple little things. It's you know, most of our guys in Projected are a little late. We got a pocket, we got a backbeat. In Sevendust, we all want to be right on the beat. We want to be on time. You know, it's like, it's just, it's a different approach to how we make music. But it's those little things, those tiny little things that give your band a signature or a sound. You know, I think it is the sum of the parts. You know, it really is. I mean, if you take one piece out and you put something else in there, it's related, but it's not the same. You know, even when Clint wasn't in Sevendust, it was Sevendust-ish, but it wasn't Sevendust. You know, it's sort of like, you know, we did a good job of swinging with the right hand, but we didn't have the left. You know, now we got our left back. And no disrespect to anybody who played guitar or Sonny, you know, playing on the records, because it's just, there's a certain chemistry when you have one body that's there, and then you take them out and you put someone else in there. I couldn't imagine what Projected would sound like, you know, with somebody else playing bass or somebody else playing drums. It would be different.
I would have to think, for each of you guys, all coming from these, you know, other huge bands, that there's got to be a little bit extra fun baked into Projected, because sure, there's probably a lot less pressure riding on your shoulders each time.
That's the thing. There's no pressure. And sometimes that's one of the most healthy places that you can try to make music from, you know, from the art point of view. It's like, if there's no pressure to go and try to get something on radio, then just do whatever you want. And the funny thing is, you write radio songs, you know, it's like, oh, okay, well, if I don't care about it, then I'm just going to do this, you know, because I sort of did that. And then I gave the stuff, you know, I gave Hypoxia to the guys, and they were like, you know, that's a radio song, right? I was like, not really. And they're like, yeah, really, that should be the thing. Okay, you know, I sort of did. And they're like, well, that's funny, because you write songs that people would probably play on the radio if, you know, if you're not writing for radio. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, just the fact that we don't have the pressure, you know, the fact that we can take time. You know, it's not like, you know, you have to put a record out, you know, by X. You know, we're sort of falling into this roughly 5-year rhythm. We wouldn't have been 5 years on this one hadn't we had the delays with vinyl and just getting all of our ducks in a row and everything. But, you know, it's like, when we had all the assets together, that's when we knew it was going to be time to, you know, to revisit and then pull the plug. And it was sort of cool, because you listen to the record a bunch when you first get the mixes and the masters, and you're really excited and you're high-fiving, and then you're playing for your friends. And then 6 months goes by, and then you realize you're not going to be releasing anytime soon. So you better stop listening to that record, because you're going to get tired of it before you ever even let the whole rest. So that's what I did. It was like, you just unplugged from it for about 6 months. And then all of a sudden, here we go. We're getting ready to drop the video. And then you spend time with it. And then it all comes back and it feels fresh again and new again. And you get all the excitement back. But yeah, man, it's been such a cool experience, pulling all this together. And some days it was like, oh, when's it going to come out? Is it ever going to come out? That people are like, do you not like the record? I'm like, no, I love the record. Yeah, that's the last thing that's a problem. We're just, we're dealing with COVID and the whole world all trying to get vinyl at the same time. Beyonce needed 700,000 units of vinyl. Like, what are you going to do? The whole world shut down so that they could make vinyl for her.
You mentioned Hypoxia, and it's a great song, and it's sort of uplifting, but it certainly deals with the realities of life in 2022. So if you would go a little bit further into the roots of this song.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was like, when the whole pandemic happened, the world shuts down. And then 2 weeks later, you realize everyone sort of went a little crazy, because it's Groundhog Day. You got the kids in the house. You can't go anywhere. It's summertime. It's starting to get warm. Most people are usually outside. Like in Florida, it was like, all right, you could at least get out. You want to go for a jog, or, go ride your bike or whatever. You could get out, and enjoy a little bit of sunshine. But, each week that it would go further and further in, when the numbers are crazy and you're watching the news and it's like, Fauci's cool, Fauci's not cool. Like, I don't know, masks, no masks. And then all of a sudden you go on social media and you're like, I'm never talking to my mother ever again. And I just blocked half my family, and I can't believe this and that, and the election this, and Democrat that, and Republican this, and block them, and, screw you. And I was just like, what is going on here? Like, everyone's just going on social media, like literally teeing off on everybody. But it was that perfect storm of everyone's just locked in the house, trying to get work done, trying to get kids' school done on 4 different computers all at the same time. And you just fed up, and then you finally get to unwind a little bit. You go on Facebook and you just start teeing off on people, and it just seemed like everyone was doing that, like every day. It was just like, it's just the weirdest place in the world to be, because I was like, these people are like, I know words are just words, but it's like, sometimes you throw that out there and you kind of can't take it back. Like, people will screenshot that and remember that until the dawn of time. It's like, people just weren't listening. They were saying a lot, but I didn't hear anybody who was actually listening to anything that anyone else was saying. So I sort of removed myself from it for a bit. I was like, okay, this is probably a good time to write about it and step away from it and not have it affect the record anymore, because I was like, I don't want to add people to I don't want to have to block people. It's like, this is silly. This is social media. You're supposed to be there posting pictures, hanging out, having a few arguments, whatever. You're not supposed to take it to that final, okay, well, I'm deleting you from my life forever. And I'm like, every day I'd be like, I can't believe I blocked them and I deleted. I'm like, really? Like, forever? This is family. And you're pissed about, something somebody posted on TikTok. I don't know. To me, it seemed like it was a little thin. I was like, maybe everyone needs to just get back outside and go, like, play Frisbee or go roll in the grass or walk the dog. Yeah, like, I don't know, maybe everyone's so like wound up, man. Everyone needs to just relax,
That's why social media for me, I mean, I like the rock and roll stuff. I take a lot of pictures, do photography. I post that stuff. I post updates about my dog Darla and the Mets and baseball, and that's it, dude. That's it.
That's sort of how I am now. It's like I spend X amount of time posting about the family life, personal stuff, a lot about music, a lot about what's happening with Sevendust and Projected. And then the rest of it, I find myself doing this, and then I'm like, delete, because all that's going to do, what this right here is going to do, it's going to eat up the next 3.5 to 4 hours of my life. Mm-hmm. Because I respond, he's going to respond, I'm going to respond, he's going to respond. 16 people are going to respond, and then I'm going to go, how did I make my life any better by doing that? I didn't.
Yeah, my rule of thumb is, and I used to try to engage people and oftentimes for the best, with the best of intentions, hey, it's really not like that, and you still get a giant fuck you back for all you're trying. So
Yeah.
all I do, if somebody posts something that's like super nasty, delete and ban. That's it. I don't have time for the rest. I will not take time for the rest of it. It's just my life is too valuable to me, to waste my time doing that crap.
I sort of understood after a while that, the block thing. It's like, okay, you're going to have to block someone occasionally. Like, you just get some people. I'm like, look, my daughter, she's 17. Like, she knows what's going on in life, but she doesn't need all of this crude stuff on my feed, and I was like, all right, this is just inappropriate. Or you're just trying to be that guy, and that's cool. Be that guy, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah, just be him someplace else. Yeah,
right. Like, the coolest thing about that was I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is actually a pretty cool tool. I can monitor exactly what's going to come up on my laptop. I don't have to have my daughter see any of this garbage. So I did. I went through. I was like, all right, well, this, at least I was using it in sort of a positive way. I wasn't like the dude saying, look, I'd appreciate you not doing that. That's your business to do that on your page. I have a lot of people who, like, literally the only reason they have a Facebook is because they want to talk about politics. I'm like, that's cool. I don't. I will scroll right on by. I won't block you. I'm not going to ban you. I'm just going to skip right on by if I see you posting about stuff, because I probably don't care. And
I'm always perplexed, or I'm often perplexed. It's like somebody goes on a rant about Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and I'm like, dude, this is a picture of Lizzie fucking Hale. Like, what are you talking about politics? Like, what is this? It has nothing to do with it. Stop.
It's crazy how you could take that step and, like, how did we get here? Like, we were talking about 5 seconds ago. So that's sort of where I am. I kind of did a duck and cover, and I said, you know what? Maybe I'm too close to this. Maybe I do need to take a step back. And you know what? For the most part of my life, it seemed to improve a little bit. It's like the time that I did spend on socials, I was actually enjoying that time a little bit more. And I wasn't spending as much time on socials because I could get in and get out. I wasn't having a knockdown drag out over some dude about the earth being flat. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, there's no way that I'm ever going to convince them that it's not. So just, okay, cool. You do you and I'll do me.
Yeah.
Good. Everyone's good. You don't have to ban anyone. You don't have to block anyone.
Well, just to bring it back to Hypoxia, you really did a great job with the song, sort of encapsulating the frustration I think a lot of us feel being in the boat that we're in right now. So you took a real negative in life and turned it into positive art, and that's really the best thing that art can do.
That's awesome. I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of one of those things that was like, I mean, it's such an obvious thing to write about, because I mean, especially at the end of the record, at the beginning, like on the day where Tim said, can you go in June? That was like, all right, 3 weeks. I have 21 days before I got to actually load into Elvis's, and Hypoxia was written on like day 18. So I had all of this time to sort of like, work on all of the stuff that needed to be worked on music. But usually my break, like when I'm not working on music, I'll either hop on socials or check the emails, check the news, whatever, just something to do a whole mental reset. Like, I don't want to hear the song. I don't want to hear anything that I was working on. I want to do something total. And the social media mental resets were like, they were starting to eat up too much time. I was like, I am finding that I'm typing way too much, and I'm not actually sending I'm actually deleting it all again. Cause I'm like, I just wasted too much time for this. And then I'm going to think about it like, no, don't think about it. Because if you hit send, you're going to invest the next 4.5 hours of your life into something that doesn't matter.
Delete. Just delete it, and you'll forget about it in 15 seconds, and it won't matter anymore. That's the key.
Everyone needs to just go outside, hug a dog, run through the woods.
There you go. Now, I know you're eyeball deep in Sevendust these days, but are there going to be any shows from the band?
I hope so. We're sort of on the same schedule with Alter Bridge and Sevendust. Interesting. We're going to follow them in the studio. I think they're going to finish in June. We're going to go in July. So we're not that far off schedules. As far as the touring goes, it's going to be whoever draws the shortest straw. Is it going to be projected in Tremonti? Is it going to be projected in Sevendust? Is it going to be projected in Alter Bridge, or a combination of all of those? Because someone's going to be pulling double duty. And
well, I was going to say, I would love to see projected on the road with Sevendust. I think that would be really exciting. Would you be able to handle the double duty?
I think so, for sure. I mean, I'd have to give myself enough of a space, do something a little earlier in the night and then a little bit of a gap. But yeah, I mean, it would be totally possible. Same thing I asked Flip. I'm like, if you had to play 6 songs before Alter Bridge, and he's like, yeah, I could do it. E-Rock's the same thing. So it just depends on, what looks like it's going to work out. It looks like the Sevendust Alter Bridge thing is more intriguing than anything, only because, like I said, we're going to be literally doing the same cycle together. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't do some shows together. And if we do, it's a very easy conversation to have when you already got 3 guys there. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, I would come out to those shows. You can bet your ass, depending on where they were and everything. I would travel to see that because, I love everything you do and have done. And it's always a pleasure to speak to you, John.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
One last thing. Do you remember when you had your first custom guitar pick? Do you remember your first custom guitar pick?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I sort of do. I had these 2, I had a purple one and I had like a greenish one. God, that goes back to like 98, 99. Yeah, I mean, we had some funky picks back in the day, but I do remember some of those really, really old ones.
And do you keep all that stuff? Do you keep memorabilia from your career?
I keep some of the stuff. I don't keep everything. Like there's a handful of those things from the first record or so that I wish that I did have. And then I see them, scooting around every now and again. And I'm like, all right, well, I got a million other picks. If I could get one of those. I'm not as good at it as I wish I had been in hindsight, but it's funny because a lot of the stuff does come around and we'll get gifted stuff that we never would have expected. I actually do have a lot of picks off the home record that I was like, wow, and came back full circle. You say one thing on, here's the positive with social media. You say one thing on social media and all of a sudden everyone shows up and they want to give you your picks back.